Protests in Georgia. What is going on? Why and what's to expect? NATO and US united in obvious more weapons for Ukraine should give us an upper hand in any possible negotiations. And a fun add-on to that, Russia complains about Ukrainian armed forces present in Syria, and a cherry on the top interview with Svітлана Романко, Razom We Stand Foundation. So good afternoon, these topics in more detail. My name is Henry Key and we are UATV English, bringing you the hard truth in easy terms for you out there, for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. Days of protests have rocked Georgia following the government's controversial decision to delay the former Soviet country's bid to join the European Union. Tensions have been brewing for months in the South Caucasus, small nation of barely 4 million people, where critics, and anyone who has eyes and ears actually, accuse the ruling Georgian Dream, what a name, party of dreaming increasingly authoritarian, pro-Russia policies and turning away from the West that has tempered hopes for Georgia's long-promised path to EU membership. The protests have been met with a violent police crackdown as the ruling party and thousands of protesters become locked in a deepening battle over the country's future and whether Georgia should forge closer ties with Russia. And no, Georgia should not, say young people in Georgia and the president. Tensions between the president, who stays faithful to her people, and pro-Russian government of Georgia intensified in late October when Georgian Dream Party claimed victory in a contested election that was widely seen as a referendum on joining the EU. Georgia, which gained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, has 4 years pursued EU membership, with the goal of joining the bloc literally written into Georgian constitution. Most Georgians support the policy. Polls consistently show, and it appeared to be on track last year when the country gained EU candidate status. But on November 28th, the pro-Kremlin government signaled a pivot away from Europe in a move which sparked widespread anger. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze said Georgia would suspend EU accession talks for 4 years after the European Parliament rejected the country's election results, citing alleged irregularities. The Georgian Dream governing bloc accused the EU of using the prospect of accession talks to blackmail Georgia and to organize a revolution even in the country. We have decided not to put the issue of opening negotiations with the EU on the agenda until the end of 2028, says Kobakidze. Also, we refuse any budgetary grants for the European Union until the end of 2028, the pro-Russian Kobakidze also said. And that brought thousands of pro-European Georgians to the streets of the capital Tbilisi, where they have rallied for consecutive nights despite a violent police backlash. Videos show protesters waving Georgian and EU flags and chanting Russian slaves at police officers guarding the parliament building. Police fired water cannons and tear gas at protesters in return, while men wearing balaclavas were seen running into the crowds and beating individuals. The protests have spread beyond the capital, with demonstrations in at least 8 cities and towns by now. Opposition TV channel Formula showed people in the central town of Kashuri throwing eggs at the local Georgian Dream office and tearing down the party's flag. Demonstrators also blocked an access road to the country's main commercial port in the Black Sea city of Poti. Take a closer look at that video. The videos show the most violent and brutal police action, actually not confirming that this is Georgian police. Some guys in some uniforms, could be anybody, no patches, no chevrons, no any kind of insignia of who these people are. Police, army, Kremlin thugs in disguise. What is obvious is that pro-Russian Georgian Dream government is using some kind of an illicit oppression force, having no insignia. Why? Pro-Kremlins are that afraid? Are pro-Kremlins that not sure that legal force will actually obey if they command, so they used illegal force instead? Well, what you are about to see is what pro-Russian Georgian Dream Party really want for Georgia. This is opposition leaders being arrested just today in Georgia.
ერთ-ერთ ლიდერს მას როგორც ხედავთ ურტყავენ ფიზიკურად უსწორდებიან, სცემენ ნიკაგო არამიას გირჩი დროა სოფისთან, გაყავთ პერიმეტრიდან, არ არის გამორიცხული.
Well, one thing worth noting here. The protest might not bring the illegal pro-Russian anti-constitutional government down this time. But this protest and illegal police violence stays embedded into the Georgian society, no doubt about that, as the government that is afraid to use its power legally confirms the obvious. It is an illegal government. Antony Blinken, the outgoing US Secretary of State, paid his final visit to NATO headquarters in Brussels on Tuesday, promising Joe Biden's administration will keep seeking to funnel arms to Ukraine in the little time it still has left in power. This is a vital moment for the alliance to make sure we're level set for the year ahead, Blinken said. Like it or not, you've got me and you've got us until the 20th of January, every minute, every day. Donald Trump, soon to be president, has cast doubts on maintaining US support and vowed to cut a quick deal to end the war. The NATO head, Mark Rutte, told Mr. Blinken, "We wish you the best after January, but we need you until 20th of January, every day, and we know we can count on you. You have been a staunch ally, and people like you very much." Blinken's visit comes as the Biden's administration rushes another $725 million worth military equipment to Ukraine in a last-ditch effort to shore up its defense against Russia's invasion before Donald Trump assumes the US presidency. Washington experts, some of them at least, say it includes Stinger anti-air missiles, anti-drone weapons, artillery shells, and long-range HIMARS rocket munitions, anti-armor missiles, as well as spare parts and other assistance to repair damaged equipment from the United States stocks.
This is a vital moment, I think, for the alliance to make sure that we're level set for the year ahead. And I'll just say in conclusion this, and I've said it before, I think what people need to remain focused on is this. The reason so many countries are invested in this alliance, the reason that new countries, Finland and Sweden, have joined the alliance, the reason the alliance is stronger than ever is because we all know it's the best guarantee against war, the best means to prevent conflict, the best means to ensure our collective security.
Amen to that. And this is exactly why Ukraine insisted and insists that NATO membership was the only real guarantee for its security. But foreign ministers from the alliance sidestepped Kyiv's push for an invitation ahead of Trump's return to the US presidency. Dinner foreign ministers from Ukraine and the alliance 32 member states ended without any concrete decision. There was no progress, said Lithuania's Gabrielis Landsbergis. But actually, there is some other kind of progress. Absurd, but somewhat even fun. If you ask me, you better get seated. Amongst all these NATO talks of Ukraine accession and possibilities, Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, Vasily Nebenza, on Tuesday accused Ukrainian intelligence services of aiding rebels fighting the Kremlin-backed Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad, saying this.
Ukrainian military instructors from the GUR are present in Syria training HTS fighters for combat operations, Russia's ambassador to UN, Vasily Nebenza.
Have previously been claims of Ukrainian military specialists humiliating the Kremlin in Mali or in Sudan by helping local forces to inflict defeats on Russia's Wagner mercenaries. But what is actually fun is how the Kremlin in general and Nebenza's tactics in particular have not changed through the ages since, it actually never changed. Russians do one and the same stupid Soviet thing always. They start wars, murder people, destruct and corrupt everything they touch, and then they just say, it wasn't us. It's someone else who did it. Apparently, every victim of Russian crime, according to Russians, did that to themselves. And Russians have nothing to do with that. Poor Russian bastards even suffer of evil Ukrainians who trained terrorists in Syria. Why in the world will we ever need that? It's a rhetorical question. Well, maybe, according to Nebenza, we want to occupy Syria so later we can exchange it for Kursk and call it Great Ukrainian Empire, join our forces with Israel, and rule together. Sorry, I know I'm not even close to Nibenzi's level of stupidity, but I just couldn't come up with anything more stupid than that. Sorry. Svietlana Romanko is the founder and the director of Ukrainian organization Razom We Stand, which grew out of a successful Stand with Ukraine campaign to end the global fossil fuel addiction that feeds Putin's war machine, by the way. If you didn't know that, Svetlana, good afternoon. Glad to have us.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, the pleasure is all mine. I said, good to have us. But I should be saying, good to have you. It's really, I know that you're in the airport right now, and it's quite stressful. So anyway, thank you so for your time. The first question, sanctions against Russia. Well, some say they're not working well enough because famous business paradigm, just business, nothing personal, is impenetrable. And there is nothing people like you and me can do about it. Like, Russia still sells oil and even buys navigation microchip, for its missiles that are fired at Ukraine every day, while the West shares its deepest concerns and fears of escalations. So my question is, so are sanctions, working or not?
Yes, sanctions are working, and it's a misconception just to suspect that they are not working at all. And in the past, we were able, all of us collectively, to deprive Russia of 400,000 billions of fossil fuel profits. And as we can see now, Russian profits significantly decreased, especially, as we say, about Gazprom, losing 75% of its profit in 2023. And I agree with you that sanctions are not that effective, that they could be potentially. And of course, there is a huge need to enforce them properly and to enact the criminal liability for sanctions breaks, and also to impose a new stricter sanctions, for example, on Russian LNG, and also to close refining loopholes on Russian oil and refined oil products.
Well, sure, but Trump alone and Trump and Saudi Arabia for sure can do together a joke out of Putin by dumping the oil quotes, the prices. How likely this is going to happen? Am I right?
I think you could be highly right.
Right.
I think maybe 80% of possibility exists, and when the Russian oil barrel price drops lower than 40 US dollars, the economy will collapse. And I am still hopeful we will see that in the first few months since Trump takes presidency in a full scale. And of course, Russia has to be punished for the war atrocious in Ukraine, and this must happen in the form of sanctions, but also blocking all financial services for Russian fossil fuels and for Rosneft and Lukoil and other Novatek projects in Siberia and in Yamal Peninsula, in everywhere in the north of Russia.
Well, you said the collapse of Russian economy. This is music to my ears. But Russian economy is doing all right, some say, and even is somewhat growing at times of war. Of course, it is at times of war. Is that true or false? Or this is, just for a little time it is growing, then it is going to collapse? Because I don't know. Educate me on that.
No. The only those who are saying that Russian economy is growing and feels happy and exponentially decreases profits, these are the Russians themselves, because the data we have available, and just saying that inflation in Russia reached almost 11%, and ruble is declining, and all Western technology is being blocked. And also, Russia has to sell oil by discounts, and India just abandoned purchases of Russian oil, which shrinks the market for Russia. So they are not doing well. The sovereignty fund is really thinking, and there are no money to spend that much for the weapons. Of course, they do have some reserves, but as projected by a few research think tanks, we will see a huge decline in the next year if we tighten sanctions, impose a ban on Russian fossil gas across Europe, but also lower the price cap for Russian oil.
Well, I could be listening to you forever. I just like what you're saying. I mean, the collapse of Russian economy and it's grinding down and everything. But if that would be up to you in terms of sanctions, what kind of sanctions would you have introduced on as a cherry on the top on the Russian Federation so it's going down to make sure?
If I were J7 political leaders,
Right.
I would immediately impose a full oil ban and full fossil gas ban immediately in the beginning of full-scale invasion. As we know, Germany has opposed this highly, but we now can see that Germany is now suffering just the same way if it been imposed the sanctions on Russian gas, and they also trying to stop it, but it really won't affect their economies that much back to them. So I would definitely do that. These half measures, this weakened political willpower that we observe not happening, and these sanctions are not actually being imposed for real. We need real sanctions. So they've been half effective, but we need real enforcement, and we need to impose sanctions on the third countries which are still buying Russian oil, refined products, and also LNG gas. But the main question is Europe, because Europe is the leader of democratic world, and they have to ban Russian gas and especially LNG. But they increased buying it just recently.
Right, well,
So yes,
exactly
this is
my
a
point.
kind. Yes, this is the world political leaders' hypocrisy that they are expressing in hope to exchange their weak willpower to sanction Russia into more voters and more success during elections.
Absolutely.
But as we can see, keeping Russia doing what they are doing, destroying our country, terrorizing our nation and genociding us, basically, it won't strengthen neither Europe nor world.
Well, amen to that. You're absolutely right. I mean, I guess when the sanctions, well, the Russian missile would finally, I hope not, but if it will fly to nearly the place where the high chairs in Russia, in Europe are sitting, I think that the policy would change swiftly. But we have Mayama Shomayama, we have what we have. So thank you so very much for your time and expertise, and have a nice flight.
Thank you so much. Have a good and safe evening. Thank you.
We'll try.
Bye.
Super. Well, that will be all, folks. My name is Ernie Keane. We are UATV English, doing our best to deliver hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Please like, share, and comment. Your voice matters indeed, as it helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. Stay safe, as we're trying to do, and tune for more tomorrow. See ya.